I mean, I would say if you were to translate that to like your grandma, right? What is user experience? It's just human-centered design, right? It's designing something that meets the needs of the user in a way that I feel is beautiful and delightful, that's surprising, that actually makes it easier.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Andy North. I'm joined today by Travis McAshan, founder and CEO of Glide. Travis, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about Glide. You started it when you were 24 years old, which I think is fantastic.
It's a little bit wild. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, just looking at, when did I start Glide? And then I was just kind of running the numbers in my head. I was like, I'm 41. That was 16 years ago, 24, 25. I was like, man, I was a kid. And, it's interesting because, Glide, I started Glide originally kind of this idea of autonomy. I wanted to do what I loved, and I wanted to do it in my own terms. I was working as a graphic designer at an internet startup. Left that, briefly had a short stint as a UX designer and creative director at another startup, but ultimately just through, 7-day work weeks, 12 hours a day, just burned out and realized like that's just not what life is about. And so I moved back to Austin. I was in Oregon at that time and started Glide. And interestingly, I started Glide. I drove back to Austin and, my car broke down. I'd run out of money. And I started Glide with like negative $200 on my bank account. And so it's just neat to see from there to here, speaking at Summit and being able to just interact with so many awesome people. But Glide, for a period of time, I was like, okay, we're going to make websites. That's our gig. That's our why. Like I didn't know at the time, looking all these years later, but over the years, just kind of growing a team of amazing, awesome, talented people. It's like a community of people, not necessarily an organization with positions and titles. And but we just realized like what we're doing is much more than just building websites. And so when I did actually see the talk by Simon Sinek called Start With Why, to me it was just really eye-opening, and it took me on this probably 2-year journey where I was just asking myself, why do I go to work every day? And I think the ultimate conclusion that I came to was that my life purpose is to help people, and I want my company to be an extension of that. Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth, and he said, don't figure out what you want to do for your job. Figure out what you want to do for your life, and then make sure that your job supports that. And so that always stuck with me. And so, I made the purpose of Glide. We're going to help people. If I want to do what I love the rest of my life. I don't want to retire. But then I realized, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this in concert with other people. And so if I'm going to work with other people, they better be awesome, and they better be A players. And at the same time, if you're going to be doing great things, it's always for other people. And so the way I define my why is, to work with great people, for great people, to do meaningful work that makes a difference. And, that resonates with me, that resonates with my team, and it definitely resonates with the types of people that we want to work with. And so it's just been this kind of really galvanizing effect. And I feel like it gathers steam, and it's neat to see how like millennials and Generation Y, all this stuff that it's coming together where I think that everyone is starting to kind of realize that this is important, and really it always comes back to authenticity. So anyway, that was a way longer answer than you needed. You're like, just give me a brief thing about Glide. But that's it,
No,
so. But I guess, the tangible, moving away from the why into the what. So I would say, in the shortest way I could say it is, we make beautiful, results-driven websites, and we try to combine and leverage human-centered design and data, so evidence-based conclusions. So, when I'm on the line with the client, it's my best client, and they ask me, hey, it's between you and one other company. Tell me why we should choose you. And I'm on the line, and what do I say? I say beauty and results.
That's outstanding. So obviously you and your team create beautiful, purposeful digital experiences. How would you describe the web design industry in one word?
That's like a really big question. I would say, for me, it's fragmented. I think that there's a lot of different components, and it's tough as, we work with a lot of kind of mid-market, SMBs, but we're starting to work with more larger entities for us. And you see these CMOs and these VPs of marketing, and they kind of have like deer in the headlights. They come in, they got a scrappy, bootstrapped team. They might have a content person or an SEO, and their job's on the line, and they got to produce, and they have to get their product to market, or they have to generate more traffic to their sites. And we've done a lot of surveys with our clients, and we know that that's our kind of target audience. And they're getting pulled in every direction. And I think that because of that, we're struggling with, well, we can offer, here we're going to build your site, but then you also need to do content marketing, but then you also need to do performance optimization, when it comes to whether it's search engine optimization or whether it's speed and performance, or it could be, I read a study that, and I think this is a little old, maybe from 2016, that marketing companies spend $92 getting the traffic, getting the people to the site, and $1 converting. And so there's this huge disparity, I think, between what really is the entire customer journey, right? Of someone that comes from awareness to decision, and then all the things that make them an evangelist at some point. But I think that where we come in and where we're excited about is that we'll always be just a component. We never really want to be a whole, the full turnkey, offer every service under the sun. But that one word fragmented to me is just, I think that it's very difficult for every size company to be able to pull all the services they need together. It always seems like there are missing components, and there are parts that are not in sync, and they're incongruent. And so, I think that when you can find a solution that really helps things fit together as a whole, it really makes a big benefit. And I think that's like WP Engine is a perfect example of that. Like, there's just certain things that when they fit into place, I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's like that part of my brain where I was worried and struggling with and having pain points and friction. Because we've worked with every hosting company under the sun in the last 20 years. WP Engine was like the puzzle piece for our infrastructure in terms of managed performance WordPress hosting. And so that that of the fragmented component, that part is settled. We don't have to worry about that anymore, and it's been pretty much a game changer for us.
So obviously you've been doing this a while, and you've worked with a variety of different brands and so forth. What would you say have been the biggest changes in digital marketing and branding over the past 3 to 5 years?
So I think you're seeing this really big shift right now. I mean, obviously, just simple stuff like mobile, right? In terms of everyone is really starting, especially, consumer brands where, your audience is more consumer focused. Mobile has been this massive shift, and that's pretty obvious. But I think that, the big shift for us is the one that I think is most exciting is just authenticity in marketing, and I think that you're seeing just the trends across all spaces, where people are really trying to understand brands and who they are and how they operate, and how that stays true from their brand message to how they actually act. And I've seen some pretty interesting statistics that people are still using websites quite a bit. So. For example, there was, I don't know the exact numbers. I wish I did. But basically, Gen Z and all the things that's going on, they're not using the app to make a purchase. They're using the websites to make the purchase. Same thing with baby boomers and millennials and all these other. And so I just think that there's an interesting, you kind of look at it like, well, the train industry invested into the airplane industry, they wouldn't have been so myopic, right? And gone. But, for us, sometimes I wonder, gosh, well, what's going to come after the website, and it's interesting because I feel like that it is always still this kind of hub and this component of a broader campaign, and who knows what will replace it, but I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
That leads me to my next question, which is, do you see the website dying, and if so, what's next? Is it apps? Is it PWA sort of morphing some of the websites now or something? And are there any technologies that you are excited about that you see perhaps on the horizon?
Yeah, and I realize some people might be watching this and think, who is this guy? Obviously, websites are, they're definitely dying in certain industries. I mean, you're seeing, we have one of our clients, Retail Me Not, and 80% of their traffic is mobile right now, and we see clients across the board where this is the case. So there are definitely, I'm not saying it's sticking around forever, but I think that, in terms of, what will replace it, I mean, obviously we're not on the cutting edge. In fact, I've always tried to kind of say for Glide, specifically, we know we're not the first, we're not the last. But at the same time, we have to be willing to embrace new technologies. I mean, you're looking at things like AR and VR and obviously, apps and mobile and things like that, that will really kind of start to eat away at the fact that people are, across the board using devices in different ways. I saw that live streaming by 2020 will account for something like 80% of all the traffic on the internet. And so I think that, with influencer marketing and live streaming and brands and corporations really trying to partner with these people, because that's where everyone's going, you're going to see just this big shift where just more real time, more authentic, more engaging, hopefully more authentic. I mean, I think the challenge with influencer marketing is it's hard to tell when someone is sponsoring a brand or if they're just using the product because they actually like using the product. It may be both, but is it disingenuous, to me? I think so. But anyways, yeah, I'm rambling, but
No, that was great.
yeah.
What role does storytelling play in the creation of some of the digital experiences that you create? Are you finding your clients coming saying, okay, this is the story we want to tell, or is it just more like we need a website, we need it up, we need it pretty?
Awesome question, because I think that, yes, we definitely have these like tangible deliverables. I mean, when I put together an SOW, because I do all the sales and I do all the scoping, and, it's really hard to put, we're going to tell your story and we're going to, put 100 hours to that and you're going to have to pay us for, but when it's like, it's a website, it's SEO, it's, it's all the designs and the development, that's the tangible deliverable. But I think that people have a strong expectation for this. And this is actually a good point because just to give a shout out to the Glide team and to our creative director, Drew Lyon. So Drew Lyon, I met him as a brand writer. And what we're learning and what we're seeing is this content first approach is that, and I think there was this article that came out that just gave mad props to creative directors that had a background in writing, in creative writing and storytelling and writing. And what you're seeing, and I've always used this in our sales pitch, I've always used this on our kickoffs with clients, but I think that one of our secret weapons is that our creative director is a brand writer by heart and nature and his passion, and he still writes today on his own for his own hobbies. And so when you have someone who's got a strong ability to tell stories, that is shaping the creative for a project, I just think that it is always a better outcome. And so the answer to that question is 100% yes. Storytelling is vitally important, and I think it is difficult because even if you keep story at heart, when you're in there, you're still just building pages to a website. You're still, even if you're thinking user flows and you're looking in your design thinking and you're getting empathetic to the customer journey and you're putting together all of these empathy maps, and there's still this difficulty to make sure that the story doesn't get lost in the fray, because at the end of the day it's just some copy on a page and hopefully the story comes through. But one of the things that we try to do at Glide, and we can't take credit for this, but we do use it. We have moved away from calling them creative briefs or outlines that we give to the design team. We call them story frames. And so what we do is we put together these story frames per page so that there's a theme to every page that is really just a subcomponent of the main message. And so that when you flow through the site, and then we put together, when we design these sites, we always start with who is the primary audience and what is the primary user flow that accomplishes the business objective, and we start there. So instead of the traditional model where it's like you always start with the homepage and you always design that for, well, we'll say, okay, well, if 90% of the traffic is landing on an individual article page, or they're coming to some product page, because that's just the way this client site works and it's how people are finding them, and you want to make sure that the story comes through there, because if they just come to some interior service page and then you're just slapping them with the Wikipedia definition of your service, then they're not getting the full story, And so I think that for us, that's an important aspect, is that to really think through the user journey and how for this client, how people will perceive them, because there might be some particular clients where the homepage is like the 50th most traffic page on the site. And let's say you spent 4 weeks making the most beautiful homepage with the most beautiful story, and yet no one ever sees it, right? So I think that, yes, story is important. You have to mix that with the deliverables, but you also have to think about the user journey.
Given that user journey, that was my next question, has UX become the new marketing? I think there seems to be much more focus on not just what we're going to create, but how it's perceived and the impressions that it leaves with the actual user. Would you agree that it is taking a much higher role
Yes.
in marketing these days?
100%. I got my degree in architecture, interestingly, and from the age of 4, I wanted to be an architect. And I've always thought that architects they live this great balance, because you have to design a building that's beautiful, but it can't fall in on your head, right? And yeah, you can leverage engineers to do some of the heavy lifting, things like that. But so I always took that passion for use of space and for just the idea of wayfinding and just the design of simple, beautiful things. And you look at architecture, the classics like Mies van der Rohe, less is more, form follows function, all these principles that came from, way before the internet existed. And yet you take those into the web and you say, how can we design something that can accomplish the functionality before we design it, right? So you think about user experience is really just that, right? UX is how does a user use this? How do they actually use it? Not how do we think they use it? Because I think a lot of times, if you left it up to the client, there's this great graphic where it shows like, here's how we designed the university college homepage. And then you have like how people are, and people really just want to see like, how do I find this? And they're like talking about their mission, all these things that are great, but I just need to get some tangible thing, right? And so user experience to us is something that we're learning. We're not like the world's greatest UX, but we have a passion and a desire to get better every day at it. Really digging deeply into design thinking and really starting to kind of hone and refine our process. I mean, we learned from some really great people around us. We went to an experience design conference by Handsome here in Austin a couple years ago, and there's some awesome guys doing some really good design thinking. But yeah, user experience is I would say if you were to translate that to like your grandma, right? What is user experience? It's just human-centered design, right? It's designing something that meets the needs of the user in a way that I feel is beautiful and delightful, that's surprising, that actually makes it easier. So yeah.
You've worked with brands from HEB to nonprofits and even religious organizations. How do you create a cohesive digital experience and user-centric design, as you were just talking about, for different audiences across different platforms?
Well, in some ways we are, just being very transparent, we do have a hammer and a lot of things look like nails, we are, since we, one of my favorite quotes is, strategy is saying no to 19 out of 20 opportunities, right? So we can't be everything to everyone. When people come into us and they say, I need this and I need that, we have a certain thing that we're really good at. And I think over the years, we've been this anomaly in our industry. We are a little bit different. In fact, I like to say, if you have a guitar playing beaver and a piano playing duck, we're kind of the like guitar playing platypus, right? Like we're this oddball in a sea of agencies, and and so we don't come to this with the ability to offer, oh, we can build it in that, and we can do this platform, and we can build it in this medium. We do tend to kind of operate in the realm of digital presence, specifically the web. So just prefacing my answer with that. But even on the website, you have these diverse audiences, and I think that whether it's a religious or nonprofit, we worked with a children's home in Amarillo. It was a really neat project. We love these types of projects. We love where we can take some super profitable client, and then we can subsidize a nonprofit where they come in and they say we have no budget. We said we don't care what the budget is, we're going to do it. And we get to do this really wonderful project. So for Amarillo Children's Home, their passion is restoring identity in children. And our director of creative services, Brooke Michelli, she's been serving there, I think for about, 10 years, or she had served there for about 10 years. And it was a passion of hers. And so it was neat to take her passion, pull that into Glide, and then we served this client, and they had no budget. And so we said, look, we'll do it, and working with them and just understanding, who are the people that are coming to this site, right? With nonprofits, it's always interesting. You always have this diverse audiences. You have people that are looking for help. You have people that are looking to help. And then you have kind of this category a lot of times with larger organizations. You have the corporations and the people that are kind of the big sponsors. And so you kind of have to think about like, how do they all flow through the same site? And how do you create messaging that meets these people's needs? We're working right now with NBCF, National Breast Cancer Foundation. Same kind of thing. It's like, so their whole thing is helping women now, right? So there's lots of cancer organizations, and it's not an industry where you compete. Everyone is trying to accomplish the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's difficult because their mission is we want to help people now. We're not going to take your money and go do a bunch of research. All the other various cancer foundations are really putting a lot of effort. Their goal is, people need help right now. They just found out they had cancer, or they're still trying to. So one of the things that I challenge them on is like, okay, well, I come to this website maybe needing help, which is the vast majority of their traffic. Yet all the stuff on the site is really geared around donation, which is fine because we need to be able to support the organization. But what about that? Like, find help now. Like, so we were kind of challenging them with this idea of, okay, well, if your mission is to help people now, let's create a call to action that speaks to the person coming to the site needing the help. And it's kind of like a paradigm shift a little bit in a way, where you still want to support the organizations and you want to make sure they have that good experience. And then also just looking at, like for NBCF, they put together apps and things like that. So they have other apps that they're supporting their entity. But again, at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to build them an app. We'll have to partner with someone to accomplish that. But that's the thing about what it is that we do. We are very transparent about how we can help. And I think that allows them to know, how do we put together the best team to accomplish these goals together.
My guest today has been Travis McAshan, founder and CEO of Glide. Travis, thanks so much for being here.
Andy, thank you for having me.